Brazil is not a country we tend to think about in terms of transit, so let's change this. I'm gonna be here for 5 months, so why not take advantage of that and look into how public transit is like in this beautiful country. For this first video here, let's focus on São Paulo, Brazil's biggest metro area with a crazy population of 23 million people. That's comparable to the populations of Quebec and Ontario combined in a single metropolitan area. Therefore, to move all of those people between their homes, schools, workplaces, shops, etc., you need mass and rapid transit. There are many transit modes in São Paulo. There's metro lines, commuter rail lines, monorail lines, bus and rapid bus lines. The metro and the rail network is a bit weird because there's 4 different operators. The São Paulo Metro with 4 different lines, the CPTM, which is the main commuter train operator, also with 4 different lines, and then there's 2 more private operators. There's Via Quatro, which operates the line 4 of the metro, and Via Mobilidade, which operates 3 lines of different modes. However, all of those different lines and different operators are pretty well integrated together, so we can see all of it as a single network. You can use one ticket, which costs about $1 to transfer to any line you want. A cool way they have to differentiate the lines is that they name them depending on their mode. The metro lines are named after colors, the train lines are named after precious stones, and the monorail lines are named after metals, except for bronze. Because there was a project that was unfortunately cancelled, but the name is still there for the future. We'll start looking at the commuter rail network here at the Guarulhos International Airport. Unfortunately, there is no rail link here. Well, actually yes, but no, but yes, let me explain. If you look at the transit map, you will see that there is an Aeroporto Guarulhos commuter train station that connects to the line 12 of the same commuter rail network with a pretty good frequency of trains every 10 minutes. And then there is the Express Airport shuttle that takes people directly to the 2 main train hubs in São Paulo. This shuttle is very useful because it takes people directly between the airport and the main stations downtown. But unfortunately, this shuttle only has a frequency of 1 train per hour, and the other main problem with those 2 lines is that they don't really take you directly to the airport. The train station is about 1.5 kilometers away, so you'll have to take a bus from the train station up to the airport terminal of your choice. Good news, however, there is a 2.6 kilometers long people mover getting built to link the train stations to the 3 different airport terminals. Construction started in 2022, it was supposed to open in 2024, but as of today it's only open to airport employees and only in the evening. This is unfortunately one of the many examples of things that take way too much time to get built in São Paulo and Brazil in general. When you take the Airport Express shuttle we just talked about, you can get off at the Luz station downtown, which is a beautiful historic train station that was built in the early 20th century. Here you can transfer to the lines 10 and 11 of the same operator as the airport shuttle, the CPTM. Both lines go quite far into the greater São Paulo area, to the southeast for line 10 and to the east for line 11. They have an impressive frequency for a commuter train. For example, there's trains every 10 minutes in the late evening or even 8 minutes on line 11, and that holds true for all of the commuter rail lines. Their frequency is pretty impressive, almost as good as metro service in some cases. I wish we had such a good commuter train network in North America. It's worth mentioning that all of the commuter rail lines are electrified, which brings obvious ecological benefits, but also allow the trains to accelerate faster and thus provide better frequencies. CPTM actually used to operate a 5th line, line 7. It was actually part of the amazing service 710, which, as the name suggests, combined the line 7 and line 10. It was an impressively long line, 100 kilometers and 31 stations. It was also a very useful service. Line 7 goes to the northwest and line 10 to the southeast, so it basically crossed diagonally the entire metropolitan region through the city center of São Paulo. Unfortunately, the service was shut down in 2025, but the line 7 and line 10 still exist, they just operate separately. And now there's a different operator for line 7, Intercity Trains, and we'll see why later in this video. So yeah, that's another operator I forgot to mention, so actually there's 5 different operators, not 4. Besides the CPTM, there's also Via Mobilidade that operates 2 commuter train lines, line 8 that goes from downtown and towards the west, and line 9 that is also on the western side of the city of São Paulo, but on the north to south axis along the Pinheiros River. It goes along one of the main universities of São Paulo, the University of São Paulo, but you still have to take a bus between the train station and the university, which is understandable because the university's campus is so spread out. It's about 2.5 kilometers long. Just a quick note, there's actually a project of a new metro line 22, that plans to have a station right in the middle of the university's campus. But I still think that's one of the downsides of the rail network in São Paulo. There are train lines that get you relatively far to places, so you still have to take a bus or a very long walk to get to your destination. São Paulo is a city with many big football teams, but their stadiums does not always have great rail access. However, that's a bit more understandable, because having a long walk is a way to control large crowds. Actually, the stations that are close to those stadiums are named after the teams that play in those stadiums. Another team that have a station named after them is the team of Santos, which is actually a team of a different city. Apparently, naming the station this way was quite a bit of a controversy, which is fair criticism. It's like calling a station Toronto Maple Leafs in the Montreal Metro. Beyond stadiums, there's other popular and busy places that have no rail access, for example the Parque Ibirapuera. Of course, you'll tell me that you cannot expect to get everywhere directly by train or metro, and that's true. It's okay to have to take a bus to do the last mile of your trip. But those were just a few examples. If you look at a map, you'll see very large and populous neighborhoods that have no rail access at all. Either big populous neighborhoods or busy workplaces, and lots of people need to move between those places. But we'll talk about what to do to improve this when we get to discussing the future expansions. Now that we have a global view of the metro area with its rail network, let's focus on the proper city of São Paulo and its metro network. The metro is mostly owned by the state of São Paulo, and it has 6 different lines. It's probably among the best metro network I've visited. It's pretty modern, it's clean, it's reliable, and it has very good frequencies. There is Line 1, a north to south line, which was the first one to open back in 1974. Line 2, which is an east to west line that goes along Avenida Paulista, which is one of the main and popular avenues of São Paulo. This avenue is pretty cool since it closes access to cars every Sunday so that pedestrians and cyclists can come to shop and walk and cycle in peace. But from what I saw, unfortunately, it seems like they reopen access for cars pretty early in the afternoon. A weird thing I noticed on Line 2 is that they named some stations after shops and supermarkets. It is an interesting way to do advertisement that I had never seen before. Another thing I noticed on Line 2 is that some stations have platform screen doors while others don't. I don't know if it's a work in progress to convert all of the stations to have them, but it's very cool to see that it's becoming more common to have platform screen doors in stations, even on older lines like Line 2. Line 3 is also on the east to west axis, and it's mostly outdoors. For most of its route, it's along the right-of-way of Line 11 of the Commuter Rail, which is very nice because Line 3 stops more often, and the Line 11 acts as an express service that goes directly between the main hubs downtown and the suburbs to the east. Line 4 is the only one operated by Via Quatro. It is the most modern line of the metro. It's great looking, it is fully automated, and has platform screen doors. It goes from Luz downtown and towards the southwest, along some of the wealthiest neighborhoods of the city. Then there is Line 5, which serves region in the most southeastern part of the city. I really like this line because the stations are very clean and modern, and the trains are very nice. And finally, the 6th and last line is of course Line 15. Yeah, we went from 5 to 15. Makes a lot of sense. Another thing that doesn't make sense is that this metro line is actually a monorail. However, it's very modern, and again, I really love the styles of the stations and trains. Even though São Paulo's rail network is pretty good, there's always room for improvement. One of the only criticism I have about the entire network is its coverage. It's really not extensive enough for a city the size of São Paulo. However, the good news is that the network is currently undergoing expansion, and many of these plans are actually under construction as of today. 2 of these are entirely new metro lines, but there's also expansions of the existing lines. If you look at the line numbers, you can see that there's a number missing, Line 6. Therefore, one of the lines that's currently under construction is Line 6 Orange. It is a 15-kilometer long metro line, fully underground and fully automated, very similar to Line 4. It will create new connections in the center of São Paulo, connecting with Lines 1, 4, 7, and 8. And beyond that, it's finally bringing rail service to neighborhoods that don't have any today. The line is planned to open in October 2026. The second line under construction is Line 17 Gold, which is actually a monorail line. That's why it was named after a metal, gold. This is probably my favorite project because it plans to finally bring a rapid transit connection to Congonhas Airport. This is São Paulo's secondary airport that operates most of the domestic flights. Okay, there's a lot of controversy about Line 17 that we have to talk about here. The initial plans were to build a line of about 20 kilometers, but then the project was abandoned, only to be revived later but with a smaller version, the one that's getting built today. Construction started in 2012 and the line was supposed to open in 2014 for the FIFA World Cup that was happening in Brazil that year. But 12 years later, as I record this in 2026, the line is still not open, not even a station. This reminds me of a very similar story in Toronto, if you know what I mean. But yeah, this is very frustrating because it seems like the line has been completed for a long time. For example, here in 2018 on Google Maps, you can see the Congonhas Airport station seems well advanced. The problem is that there were a lot of contract signings, then terminations, then signing with other companies, and all of this confusion led to very long delays. 14 years to build 7 kilometers of monorail is way too long. However, we might be seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. They plan to open the line partially in March 2026 and then fully operational by June. I went to see the airport station and I'm really excited to see the line in action. The entrance to the airport is right here, and here there's gonna be a future underground tunnel to access the station that is just over there. If it opens by the end of my stay here, I hope to make a video about it for you guys. Beyond those new metro lines, the metro and rail network is undergoing expansion. Line 2 of the metro is getting 8 new stations to connect all the way to line 3, and they're currently building a new platform at Peña station so that line 11 starts stopping there to connect to line 2 extension and line 3. Line 4 is getting extended with 2 stations to the west, same thing for line 5 to the southwest. Line 15 is going to be extended 1 station to the west, which makes more sense now that I read about it. I was filming the trains at the final station of line 15, but I saw that the tracks were continuing towards the west, even though it was supposed to be the final station. But after reading about the expansions, I understood that what I saw was the expansion of the line. They're building a 1-station expansion towards the west to connect to line 10 at Ipiranga station, and it's planned to open in 2026, which makes sense because it seemed pretty complete to me. There's 4 planned lines awaiting to sign contracts to start construction. I won't go through all of them, but you can see them on this image along with the other expansions we talked about. If all of those plans end up getting built, São Paulo will really reach another level with their rail network. We saw that the network is pretty diverse, with metros, commuter trains, monorails, and buses. And it's going to get better because the city of São Paulo announced that they want to build 2 tram lines in the heart of the city. I think this is a very good project because it can make the city center area a bit more pedestrian friendly. The center of São Paulo is unfortunately covered in very wide avenues that get very loud with all the cars and motorcycles. So putting some tram lines there to remove some of the traffic sounds amazing. I have noticed some roads already have dedicated bus lanes with stops that look like tram stations, so there's already some room for such development. However, since a lot of people drive due to the lack of public transit in some areas, it's important to also develop the rapid and mass transit in parallel to get people from their homes to the places they need to go in other ways than driving. In the São Paulo metro area, there's still a lot of very populous areas that don't have any rapid or mass transit. Some of these areas could be served by a new line that would connect to other lines. For example, in the eastern part of the city, you have lines 3, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 15 all running in parallel to each other. And between them, there's very large and populous neighborhoods without any rapid or mass transit. Therefore, a metro line connecting all of those lines and neighborhoods together could be very valuable. And it's funny because when I wrote this part of the script, I hadn't read about the Line 14 project yet, which plans to build a line exactly on that corridor, so I'm glad to see something is being done about it. Beyond the city and the metro area, there are talks of building a network of intercity trains in the state of São Paulo. You need to know that Brazil has no passenger trains at all, besides one line in the state of Minas Gerais and some touristic train rides here and there. This is very unfortunate because Brazil has so many populous places that are not very far apart. You have the massive and populous greater São Paulo area that we've been exploring in this video, but there's many large cities around it. First, Campinas, which is located about 80 kilometers to the north and has a population of around 1 million people. Then there's Santos, about 60 kilometers south with a population of about 500,000. Then Sorocaba, which is 80 kilometers west with around 700,000 people. And finally São José dos Campos, 80 kilometers to the east with around 700,000 people as well. So basically there's more than 3 million people living in a radius of 100 kilometers around a gigantic metro area of more than 20 million people. This is basically the perfect region to build an intercity train network. And fortunately, there is a project that plans to do just that, building passenger trains in all 4 axes, north, south, east, and west, to the 4 cities we've mentioned. This plan is called Trens Intercidades, intercity trains in Portuguese, which will be operated by the company Intercity Trains that was created last year. Remember that name? Yes, that's the operator of the line 7 of the commuter train. This line goes to the city of Jundiaí, which is pretty much halfway to the city of Campinas, so there's only about 44 kilometers of track to be built. There is an existing rail right-of-way that could be used, but it looks very old and has a lot of curves, which is not great if they want to reach the desired speeds of 140 kilometers per hour. However, this is probably the most promising of the 4 projects, and the works on this new line is planned to start this year in 2026. And this line could be very interesting for tourists and travelers in general, because Campinas has an international airport. As for the other 3 projects, the Sorocaba one is probably the second most promising, and as for the Santos one, I would not get really hyped up. The path to go there is very hilly because there is a huge difference in altitude between São Paulo and Santos. I've heard crazy talks of building a 30-kilometer long tunnel or using some very old and curvy right-of-way, so it will be a very complex construction, but maybe one day. Now, to end this video, I want to talk a bit about the user experience. I think they make it a bit difficult for non-Brazilians to buy tickets, but that's a very common thing in Brazil. There's a lot of things where you'll need a CPF, which is the Brazilian tax number. For example, if you want to buy a bilhete único, which is basically the card where you loan money to pay for the bus or metro, you need a CPF to ask for this card. For some things, they actually let you use your passport number instead of the CPF, like on the bike share app Bike Itaú, which is very nice by the way. However, the bike and pedestrian infrastructure in São Paulo is not the best. I'd even say it's pretty dangerous in some places, but I'll leave that topic for another video. This is my first of many travel transit videos I'm gonna make this year. If you want to see more of these travel videos with in-person footage, let me know. If you want to support this channel, then consider becoming a member on Patreon or YouTube. You can see both options in the description, and I appreciate anyone that's considering supporting the channel. Anyway, that was it for me guys, see you on the next one.